23.
Gilui HaChesed, and the Eibishter reveals his kindness in the matters of healthy children, having good health, and parnasa. It requires a detailed accounting through the 10 emanations and the creation of the world vis-a-vis what's called ex nihilo, something from nothing, yesh mi'ayin.
Rabbi Dolphin, where?
Yes.
Where are you? I'm sorry, where are you?
On page 323.
No, we're not on 323.
Yes, we are.
We're on 299. No, we're on 299.
Hold on. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, one minute.
Are we?
You're right. Okay, you only turn back. Moshe's right. 299. Who's that behind you? Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Yid. Who are you?
Yeah. This is Yisrael Meir's father-in-law, Yoni. This is Yaakov Rus from Montreal.
Oh, hey! I didn't recognize you. How you doing, Rabbi Yaakov?
Baruch Hashem. Rabbi Dolphin.
Oh, you look good. You look good.
Thank you very much. Rabbi Dolphin, Rabbi Yaakov here is from Montreal, and he's visiting his daughter and son-in-law that live in Mishkafayim neighborhood.
Okay, Rabbi Yaakov is a Chabadnik?
Yeah.
Major. Rabbi, he donates the Kalbach, all the Chabad Sidurim. He donated all of them.
Okay, Rabbi Yaakov, when you come back to Montreal, I hope you'll join us. We would love to have you learn with us Chassidus. We not only do we learn, but we create a community of love and togetherness and friendship. So if you want to have that more in your life, I'm sure you'll have it. Join our group. It's a good group. Okay. Well, nice to see you. I have good friends in Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know Professor Brower, Yaakov Brower. I'm sure you know Yankel Brower. You know, so very well. So we know each other, and many other people in Montreal. Okay. And my family, you must know the Dolphins. They're all from Montreal and Canada, Toronto, Montreal. The Dolphin family. I can't hear him. What?
Yes, of course. But I didn't realize you're part of the Dolphin family.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
We are the only Lubavitcher Dolphins. with beards. Okay. Anyway, let's learn.
There's a dolphin that donated the upgrade to our shul, the main shul.
That's my father's second or third cousin, Manny Dolphin or Mendel Dolphin. Yeah. They listen, from the early 40s, they were from the first Talmidim in the Lubavitch Yeshiva when the yeshiva opened in 42. Some of them. So their grandfather. So, you know, there's a big relationship between them and Rabbi Garlitsky and all the Chevra that passed on already. They were from the first people, and they were supporters. Very big supporters of Lubavitch in Montreal. Okay.
Right.
Kitzer, page 299. Sorry, everyone, turn back. Be'olam Atzilus, Esas Sfiras Eidos V'Kelim. In Olam Atzilus, you have what's called 10 emanations, lights, and vessels. Everything is organized. There's no chaos there. Right? Chaos was pre-Atzilus. Why is he standing, Moshe? Let him sit down. Chochma Dasiya Legabe Chochma Datzilus. Okay.
I tried, but Rabbi Yaakov wants to stand.
Okay. We in this year, it's free. You got to do whatever you want. We have no conditions. I'm serious. That's the way our kolel that we made is no conditions. You want to come a little, a lot, old, young. Shmuel and I, everyone just come and enjoy. Okay. So.
If you want me to go to, I'll be happy to sit down.
No. Whatever you want. Whatever you're most comfortable. Chochma da'asiyah legabe chochma da'atzilas ke'erech mesikis gashmi legabe chesed haruchni. If you compare Chokhmah in the world of Atzilus to Chokhmah, the way it's in Asiya and action, it's similar to the difference between the sweetness, the physical sweetness of a physical food compared to its spiritual source. It comes from there, but there's no actual sweetness in Ruchnius, in spiritual realms. Hishtalshelus de Bria, Yitzir Asiyim Atzilus Laidea Parsa. You remember, Chevra, we learned about a new concept called a Parsa, which means literally a curtain. It's a light format of obscuring the energy. And then there is Tzimtzum. So we discussed now last year, a very important point, the difference between Tzimtzum and Parsa. Tzimtzum is a heavy contraction. You can look at, for example, we have two kinds of covers on light in your room. One gives you some light, and one gives you less light. And so that's the difference between the Parsa, between Parsa and Atzilus. When you talk about the progression coming from Ein Sof, from God pre-Atzilus to Atzilus, there you need to have Tzimtzum. Why? Because the energy is so overpowering, is so intense, if you don't have kind of what they call a hard stop. A hard stop, one second, Jonas, 1 second. What happens is there's going to be a seepage of Elikus into Atzilus, and it's going to be too hard, too much for it to take. So you need a Tzimtzum. But from Atzilus to Bria and Bria Yitzir and all that, between each other, over there, a Parsa is adequate to accomplish the balance between the Or and the Keli. Yes, Jonas, what do you want to say?
But between the Or and Atzilus, you need a complete removal.
Right. Okay, what Jonas is referring to, and it's obvious that he learned in Yeshiva Chassidus, and that is that in Tzimtzum itself, Yoni, listen to this. This is what Jonas is referring to. In Tzimtzum itself, there's two types. There's Tzimtzum b'derech siluk. That's the word he mentioned. Siluk, total removal, and there's Tzimtzum b'derech miut, in a way of minimization. In Tzimtzum itself. But Jonas said, I don't want to go into that here. Let's leave that for another time because it needs a shir for itself. But you're right. Okay. You caught me. I tried hiding it. I didn't want to get into it. And you pulled the cat out of the hat and you brought it to the attention. But unfortunately, we're not going to discuss it this year. We're going to leave it for another time. But now we have, and this is the beauty of having chevra that learned in yeshiva on a shir, that they can challenge and their teacher and say, wait a minute, there's more to Tzimtzum. So when you say that, so again, the two concepts are Tzimtzum b'derech siluk, Tzimtzum in a manner of removal, complete removal, and even that needs discussion what that means, because there's never complete removal, because if you say the energy is not here, how does the world exist? Right? So we need to understand what does it mean that God's energy is removed in a manner of tzimtzum completely, that Yonasan referred to. And then there is tzimtzum b'derech miut, tzimtzum in a manner of minimization. So put it in your back of your heads, remember it, and we'll get back to it. Let's continue now. And he says, kedugmas, to understand the difference between parsa and tzimtzum, it's like seichol hamizgalgel mehamoshel. The Rebbe introduced to us what is a mushel, a parable. Now, Avi, in a parable, when you use a mushel to explain something, if it's a good mushel, if it's correct mushel, you don't hear at all at the time the nimshel, the moral. When you're in the world of the mushel, you're in the world of the mushel, but you know that the mushel, that the example, the parable, is a parable for a moral, for an idea. Right? Shlomo Melech says, 3,000 Mishalim. In other words, he was able to give so many thousands of Mishalim on every idea. Why? Because the ideas were very aloof and very difficult, and he wanted to touch every person, so he used so many different mishalim for different people. And that's an amazing fact. But the fact is, when you're in the world of a mashal, it points that there's something higher, but I don't know yet the correlation. Only after fully understanding the mashal and looking back on what I brought the mashal for, do I see a correlation, at least somewhat, between the mashal and the nimshal. That's what he says here. That the seichel hamizgalim ma'mashal, the logic that reveals itself, that manifests itself through the mashal, is similar to the difference between Atzilus and Bria and the worlds to follow with the Parsa. The Parsa, on one hand, is a curtain that obscures the part of the light, but it's not a total obstruction. It's still telling that it's a curtain over a light. So you know there's a light that's there. I don't know how the light looks, what the light is, what's its purpose. I don't know all of that until I kind of remove the curtain to completely study and see and feel the light. But even in the mode of the mashal, of the curtain is demonstrative that there's something behind the curtain. Which, by the way, what's the lesson for us of that? Moshe always, your good friend Moshe is always, he wants bottom line from all of this deep Hasidus. He wants bottom line. What do I get from this today in my studio meeting Mr. Yaakov Rus? And the answer is, don't be fooled by the curtain. Don't be fooled by the obscurity. There's something greater and bigger behind the concealment. What you see is not what you get. There's something deeper. And the previous Rebbe, the son of the Rebbe Rashab, he teaches us that's both, guess what, Ari? It's both in the positive and negative when it comes to character. And he says, sometimes you see someone who's very magnanimous and very generous, but deep down they have a very rotten core. And sometimes someone is very, very cheap, mean, not nice, and deep down they have a tremendous, beautiful, soft core. And this is life. So he talks about it. So that's what I'm saying. You see a curtain, you see a concealment, so you don't see the light. So you think the reality is obscurity. The reality is Helen Vehester, concealment. So what we're learning is, you should know there's something behind the concealment. There's an aura, an energy of elokus, of godliness that's behind the energy. And that's the emes. And now go find it. And that's also what's going on in life. The whole idea of the corona is part of that same thing that we discussed. It's all a Helen Vehester. It's a concealment. And the purpose is to find the greater good behind the concealment. Because there is greater good. Whether we know or we don't know yet, but there's no question that there's greater good. When the Eibishter made the Mabul, right? Think of it. Put yourself in the time of Noach. He makes a Mabul, Yoni. He wipes out the entire Kol HaYikum, the entire existence. If you were there, what would you think? God, what are you doing? You're destroying the entire habitat, the entire universe, the entire world, the entire mankind, existence, right? Comes along the Alter Rebbe in the Maamar Torah, in Mei Noach, and the Alter Rebbe says, it was a tahara. It was like going into a mikvah. The mabul is like the memsah that you need, the 80 gallons of water, and here we had plenty of water to purify the world, and the world was full of corruption, immorality, stealing, thieving, arguing, fighting, right? Hashem said, I got to do a cleansing. Like, you know, after you go to a weekend in the Catskills and they stuff you with food and more food, that's all it's about. Food, right? You come home, you say, I got to cleanse myself. I'm doing a liquid diet for a week. The Eibishter said, I'm doing a Mabul diet for a week for this world. or for how long it lasted. Because the world is corrupt and full of schmutz and problems. I got to wash it out. So the Alter Rebbe says that it's not the negative, it was the positive. A mikveh is positive. It cleanses you. So I'm saying the same thing over here. You could look at the obscurity as a negative. It's dark. It's dingy. It's problematic. It's corona. V'chulu. And then you can see in all of this a higher good. And you'll only see it if you understand and accept that this is what's happening. So this is the mashal. And once you agree with the mashal, you can go to the nimshal, to the moral. But if you still have a problem, an issue with the mashal, you're never going to get to the nimshal. You never will arrive at the moral, because you'll be stuck in the nimshal. And many times, we get stuck in the mashal. We get bogged down by the problems, and we just bask in the negative. And this is no good, and that's no good, and he's no good, and she's no good, and I'm no good. All about, and what do you expect? You expect your kids and grandkids to be proud of you? You expect them to want to emulate you? No. I got my old groggy pop, or mom, or grandfather, or rebbe, or rabbi, or teacher. I don't want to be around them. And that's, by the way, you want teenagers to be more involved? Show them excitement. And I go back to that, when I was in that Karl Bach shul, whether you like the style, you don't like the style, I saw people there that would never come in, okay? And I knew some of them, and I asked them, why are you coming here? I said, I'm coming here because I like the vibes. I just like I need excitement. I'm all week, teaching and this, but, I want Lebedikai. I just want to feel elated, and I like the davening and the Lebedikai. That's what, I'm not a Karl Bach, niggin man. I didn't grow up with that. That's not my cup of tea. But why are you doing here? So he says, we're here because of our kids. He points, I want my kid to remain frum. I want my kid to feel good about. And in our tradition, Sephardic tradition, this tradition, it's nice and beautiful for us adults who grew up with that in Morocco, in Iran, in Syria, wherever. But these kids are growing up in Eretz Yisrael, and everything's open to them. And I'm not saying, Avi, that we need to push them to the Karl Bach shul. I'm not saying that. If they get that, wherever they get it, they should get it. Breslov, Lubavitch, Karl Bach, Sephardic. The point is, it needs to be fresh and real. And when you bring freshness and reality to people, Shabbos here in Hallandale, we had a Fabrengen after shul. So, they have the little boxes and this and that, and then everyone, the guys, the 10, 20 guys that stay till 2 o'clock. And we really, and I'm telling you, these guys, they're business guys, they're in a different place, And some of them come late to shul. You guys know the score. So, but here they're sitting to 2 o'clock. Why? Because we fabranged in a way that it spoke to them, and together with, content, with Achsidish Nigin, and a little Musar, and a little Chaim, and a little joke. It's a different experience. It's a different experience. Whereas, just straightforward Dvar Torah, that we've lost it. People, yes, Ari, you want to say something? Anyway, okay, let's continue. We have a few more minutes. Let's go. So he says, now we're learning page 299, the Perik Base, chapter 2. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. More the distance between Atzilus and what's above it to Atzilus and what's below it is no comparison. The Bayin himself, okay. Above Atzilus, there aren't any spheres. And I'm going to preempt Jonas's question. Well, there is something called the Esespheros Agnuzos, the 10 hidden treasured spheros, but that's not the discussion here. So there is, but right here he's not speaking about the treasured spheros. That's a discussion for another time. So let's continue. The Esespheros Datzilus, Hein b'mehus k'mehus chodesh mamash. When we talk about 10 emanations in Atzilus, it's like a new reality. V'lochein hisavos eses finas d'Atzilus be'eirei yisav baruch hu, who al yedei, top of 301, tzimtzum, Yoni, you got that word on top? It's the word. Yoni is a fan of the word tzimtzum. I could see. He's a tzimtzum man. We got to create some kind of yuppie enterprise called tzimtzum. Okay? So, tzimtzum u'makom panui. The tzimtzum creates a void because the light, the energy has been contracted, and now you have a void. You're able to begin planting and sowing and working. You understand? You see, this is the hidden, the concealment on the original or legamri, completely. What is created and formatted from a complete concealment is a type of energy that does not reflect at all the original energy. Now you'll notice the word I used was reflect, because it comes from that energy. Your kid comes from you. As much as you or your kid says, I don't like you, Dad and Mom, and all that, and I'm rebelling against you, where do they take that from? You, the parent, because they come from you. As much as there's been a concealment on it, it still comes from there. But nevertheless, in the manifestation, in the way it displays itself to the next generation, there's an obscurity. And it's like the teenager, the young adult, doesn't want anyone to recognize that he comes from these parents. He wants to be a man for himself and doesn't want to be recognized as a continuation in a long thread of parental and grandparents and Klal Yisrael. So the college kid in the 60s and 70s says, enough with this stuff. I'll start growing my hair wild, putting on the ponytails, shaving my head, putting nose rings in, putting tattoos on, and looking in many different ways. Why? I don't want to look like an East Side Jew. You know, it's too normal. But the fact is, you can speak to them, and you get to know them. You could tell that they come from there. I'm telling you, it's in every single situation. It comes out. You can't run away from your family and your ancestors. It's in your DNA. It never will be, this will never change because Hashem made it this way. So I'm using this all to give ideas of how we apply this concept of an obscurity of the light together with a continuation, a reflection of where it comes from. Let's continue. But in comparison now to Asiya, to Atzilus and below, not Atzilus and beyond and higher, Yesh lo erech v'yachas, there is an association, there is an association because in Atzilus there is the idea of Chochmah, of wisdom. You cannot say the Chochmah, the Bria Tzirasiya, who Muhus Chodesh Mamish. You can't say it's all new. There's already an element and a manifestation called wisdom in Atzilus. And since there is already wisdom in some format, this Chochmah of Atzilus is the germ for Chochmah of Asiya. שגם בחינס חוכמה דבריציר אסיר כלולה בחוכמה אצילוס מאחר שהוא גם כבחינס חוכמה ורק שהוא בחינס מדרגס על יוינס it's only a higher level of חוכמה וידעו דכל מדרגס על יוינס כללס בתיכל כל מה שממטר ממנו and it's known that the higher level as soon as you say there is a chokhmah in Atzilus, you should know, the Rebbe Rashab says, Moshe, that this chokhmah d'Atzilus is the prelude for chokhmah of Asiya. So If we're talking about Atzilus and higher, there's no Chokhmah yet. There's only God. But it's God, the way God has every virtue, including Chokhmah. But Chokhmah per se has not been classified. When does there become a classification of Chokhmah? In Atzilus. And since there is a classification, that means that Chokhmah, that Atzilus, is the prelude and of the Chokhmah that will come later on. So in other words, the way a person is and has created a formatted themselves, that's the way their kids are going to be. More or less. Let's continue. The way this comes about is through cause and effect. The Chokhmah of the lower worlds of Yitzir are called an offspring light from the new light. The Talmud over Hulifi Shuba, if an Achim of Chokhmah Atzilus, the Sava of Yitzir they parsa. I thought we learned this already. Why we learned this? I can't believe. Oh, he's repeating it. Moshe, we learned this. I don't believe it.
No, we didn't. We did not learn this yet.
Were you here the last year that I gave? Okay, we'll just continue because it just sounds so familiar, so it must be he's repeating it. He's saying again, the way that the Chokhmah of Asiya comes from Atzilus is through a parsa. I've been speaking about it, that's why I thought we learned it. Dina parsa, kamoy hamoshul, it's like a moshul, shamoshul be'emes dover achel gamli ma'nimshul, or kamei kirunin ha-parsa, shu dover achel gamli, she'enim b'chilis Atzilus, v'yidei ze nimtze b'chilis Chokhmah b'riya yitzir asira. So it's like a moshul. Harei zeu shudus chadesh, last paragraph in 2 or 301. This is what was created through Chokhmah, something completely new. That's why it's called the novelty. Nevertheless, in essence, Chokhmah in this scenario is not new. It should be something completely different. Next page. Top of 303. So the way it's created is through this curtain, this concealment and obscurity. Clearly, Yoni, this is not, the parsa is not compared to what time is it? To the tzimtzum. The inyan of tzimtzum, see, this inyan of tzimtzum is removal of the first light, first energy completely. But the curtain, the obscurity, the curtain, the original light, it invests itself and hides itself in the parsa. In other words, the way tzimtzum works, it's removal, either complete removal or partial removal, but it's looking to get away. Parsa is not getting away. Parsa says, I want to be here, but I want to be here in an obscure way. You hear the difference? Again. That's the difference. In other words, here's another. What's your mindset? Your mindset is to be there, or your mindset is to be not to be there. So in the mode of tzimtzum, the mindset is not to be there. In the mode of parsa, the mindset is to be there, but I want to hide and seek. Right? That's going on. Let's continue. When
you use the mindset, you're talking about like the cosmic mindset?
The cosmic mindset as it is in Parsa is to hide, but to be there, to hide and seek. But the cosmic... Okay, let's continue. Just like in the moshul. The nimshul, the moral. Moshe, the moral is invested in the moshul. It's not that the moral, the nimshul... The nimshul is not looking to hide from the moshul. The nimshul, at the end of the day, wants to be experienced. The moral wants to be experienced and realized. But the way to do that, I need to go through the channels of the moshul. And when you have that experience, that's when the logic, the idea is experienced as a chidush, as a novelty by the recipient. Because when you go through the mushal stage, the parable stage, it feels new. It's not new because it's a mushal to a nimshul. So it already existed in the nimshul, in the idea. But the idea was too lofty. So when I apply a muscle to a lofty idea, I experience the idea post-muscle in a new way. And he says, it invests itself in the parsa, and from that we have a new chokhmah and bria, or meila. Simultaneously, this tells you there is an association between the chokhmah and bria to the chokhmah of Atzilus. So if you say, listen to this, if you say that the chokhmah and bria has some association to the chokhmah of Atzilus, you're also saying at the same time, you understand, that the chokhmah of Asiya has an association. Because this is the rule. All ishtalshalus, it's a chain, right? And in a chain, one is bound with the other. So although one is the head of the chain, the top of the chain, and one is the bottom of the chain, it's all one experience in totality. So it's a difference in an amount, in quantity, but not a difference in quality. The quality, I'm just paraphrasing, the quality is all the same in Ilu v'Olu, which means cause and effect, relationship. Let's continue. And he says, So also, now he goes from Chokhmah to kindness. When we talk about Chesed of Asiya, in comparison to Chesed of Atzilus, there's a relationship. In Cain, since it's actually rooted there. For example, using the mashal. Adam for Nidim, no comparison. Sikas at the pool, the sweetness of an apple. That's rooted in the spiritual mazel. And in its source, it's rooted in the very spiritual chesed. From chesed of Asiya, we get what we have in this world, mamish. All the chayas, all the vitality, and all the energy that we experience in this world comes from chesed of Asiya. Imkein, gam bechesed elyon datzilus, hanitzav l'chol adam. Even the chesed elyon datzilus, which has been budgeted for every man, but Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippur, how much you're going to have? Shaper mushroshim mamish kol hashpois gashmiyam meshochim bechesed Asiya. All the budget that's going to be given from chesed Asiya, the lower level of chesed, is sourced and rooted in chesed of Atzilus. The miyachad the chesed Asiya mushes bechesed Atzilus. Im keina gam kol advorim nemshochim b'chilas chesed Asiya mushroshim gam ki b'chilas chesed Atzilus. V'hainu the b'chilas chesed Atzilus kvar kolelis chesed Atzilus already has incorporated biatzma kol shorshi advorim. All everything that's going to come, Hamishachim is going to come later on. And that's what he explains. The fact that man is judged daily or every moment on everything. Sorry, man is judged on Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur on everything that will happen to him throughout the year. Because the chesed that's been designated to him on Rosh Hashanah Kippur, shenimshach. Top of 305. Everything has been set in a general way, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And what we understand from this is the importance, the high, great importance of making, now we learned, now it's not that time of the year, but the importance of the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. We think of it, what do you think of Aseres Yemei Tshuva? What do you think of Aseres Yemei Tshuva? I got to do Tshuva. I coronate God as king. Yom Kippur's coming, I better shape up. Tshuva, tshuva, tshuva. But Rebbe says here something different, not to contradict that. He says, realize that what you do and the way you set yourself up in these 10 days, that's the way it's going to go through later in the year. Now, we learned earlier, there are ways of even changing that later on. Remember we learned that by being mispalo to Hashem and using the tzaddik to make a change in Hashem, which he brought to the story of the Baal Shem Tov. Okay. And then there is the daily judgment to access the flow. But between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it says, on March 26th, on Chav Beis Adar, this coming year, you're going to get this amount of parnosa. Your parents, your friends are going to have this, and you're going to have this. Now, what happens the day comes and I don't have that amount of parnosa? Is it a lie? No. You didn't access it to Olam Hazeh. It's in your spiritual storage bank. It's like Lahavdil JetBlue. If you cancel a ticket, you buy a blue fare, which is the cheapest fare. And you cancel a ticket, today they put it into a travel bank. Travel bank, it's yours. They're worth a ticket. You can buy someone another ticket and go and come whenever you want. They don't penalize you. So the Eibishter says, the budget I gave you through Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, for whatever it is, health, parnasa, children, everything was going to happen through the year. Now, to access it, to be in your life, B'Poel, that takes daily activity accounting. Chevra, we're going to stop tomorrow. I'm not giving shir because I have to travel. In Mitzvah Hashem, we'll continue at 7:30, at 2:35, back to the old time, probably for another month till the Nates changes and so, okay? Anyway, thank you for coming. And Yaakov, very nice meeting you. I hope we'll meet one day in person. And give regards to everybody.
The meeting's good.
What?
So if shir,
Travel safely.
Thank you.
You too, Yaakov. Travel safely.
Thank you. What?
So tomorrow there won't be a shir.
No, tomorrow's no shit because I have to leave early. I can't make it.
Okay.
Moshe, what did you say?
Okay.
Moshe, what did you say?
we're gonna resume shir on Wednesday.
And Yirtzeh Hashem at 2:35, back to the old time. Anyway, listen. I had Baruch Hashem, Hashem cooperated. It was a wonderful weekend with the family. And last night, guys, I had a Zoom I told Yoni before, with my classmates that we all were sent by the Rebbe to Los Angeles. About 7, 8 got on. 2 were in Eretz Yisrael, they weren't on. And one other guy. So I think 7 of us were on. And we were just roasting each other. It was great. And it was great. It was, this is going back to when we were 19, 20, and I had one fellow who I learned with who was on, a DC lawyer, very prominent lawyer, from guy. So he said at the end, he said to everyone, to all my friends, he said, this is amazing, he said, I went to college, he said, and I had many buddies and everything. How many of them are we in touch with each other? He said, 0. And here I see you guys are 60 years old, 59, 60, and you're like young buddies in yeshiva, having lots of fun. So remember, that yeshiva experience is a gewaltige Zach. Nothing can replace the yeshiva experience. So I thought I'd share that with you. Have a great day and atzlacha. Take care.
Okay, see you Wednesday, Rose. Take care.
Bye-bye.